Let's end up with some color correction with math. Oh man, not math. I know what you're saying. I can hear you. I don't want math. You mean like adding and subtracting? Well, dust off your calculators, put in some batteries, or get in the sun if it's solar powered, because we're going math. We're going to correct this image using math. It's a process that I've come up with over a couple of years developing this mathematical equation. It's not perfect. It does not work on every image, but that's why you have more than one way to correct an image in Adobe Photoshop, because not all images cooperate. The math is right here in a layer. Incidentally, you do have this file in your student work folder. I'm not going to take a lot of time here while you write this down, because you can pause this and write it down at your leisure. Image adjustments threshold is what we're going to do to find our shadow and highlights. We're going to record the information. Then we're going to add some stuff together, do some division and subtraction, and we're going to correct this image with math. You ready? Okay. Let's get out of here. Here's the image. Incidentally, if you are going to try this on this first one, and I'd recommend trying it on the sample first, make sure that you have this layer selected and not the math layer, or it won't work. So make sure you have this one selected down here. How do we start? We need to identify the lightest and darkest areas in this image. How do we do that? Well, we could do this. We could pick up our nice little eyedropper and start moving around. You will notice I have a palette open that you have to have. It's called Info. If it's not open, you can't find it, go to the word Window and go down to the word Info so you can have that palette open. You will notice as I scroll around and walk around on this image, those numbers over here, this area here, change. They're telling me the values of red, green, and blue in terms of their brightness and color that comprise that area. What am I doing? I'm looking for the lightest and darkest area, but if I do it this way, it's kind of like playing Where's Waldo. I can come down here and say, well, I don't know, this is pretty dark. How about there? But if you'll notice, it says 39, 29, 24. How do I really know that's the darkest area? It could take me a half hour to figure this out, so we got a simple way to do this. Go up to the word Image on the pull-down menu, go down to Adjustments, and slide over and down to Threshold. I love Threshold. Threshold will split this thing into black and white. What I'm going to do is I'm going to move this slider right here until the last area, kind of like a pen and ink drawing, isn't it? Last area goes black and then turns to white. Right there. See it over in the corner? That's the darkest area in this image because that's the area that survived. I want to mark that area because I got to come back to it. Now, let me zoom in a little bit so you can see this easier. Take your eyedropper and get into that area. Hold down the Shift key and click. You've just made a color target. We need to find white, or actually the lightest area. It might not be white. Go this way. Last area to go black from white. Looks like our candidate is right there staring us right in the face. Let's zoom in a little bit on that so we can see that easier. Hold down the Shift key once you're in position and click another target. These two targets, don't click OK here. We don't want that image. Click Cancel. We only use Threshold to find the light and darks. Check this out. It says number 1 and it says number 2. Number 1, number 2. These values represent what is underneath that target. Now the math begins. Add up 11, 10, and 8. Now that comes out to 29. Divide by 9. You get the number 3.2. Round up. The number we need is the number 4. Write that number down. Over here, 183, 163, 120 comes out to a value of 466. Divide by 9. You get 51.7. Round up to 52. But then subtract that number from 255. You get a value of 203. So our numbers are 4 and 203. Why did we do this? I mean, what's the purpose? Anytime you take three numbers, add them together, and divide by 9, you're getting 1/3 of those three numbers. I found in my experience that 1/3 of that number, and we're going to use it as an offset, is basically going to work most of the time. So I like the 1/3. That's why we did the divide by 9. Why are we subtracting the highlights from 255? Because that's where we start with highlights. We start with 0 here and we go up the scale, so the number 4 is fine. But on this one, we start with 255 and we got to go back down the scale, and that's why we're subtracting 52 from 255, and that's why we have the numbers 4 and 203. With that done, We're a couple of clicks away from fixing this image. Let's go to levels. So let's go ahead into our adjustments and get into levels. We have to change the values of the eyedroppers. Right now they're set to pure black and pure white. That is not a pure white. That's 52 points away from a pure white. This one's close, it's only 4, but we have to adjust these things. How do you do that? Double click on the black or the shadow highlighter and it will open up the values. Change that number to 4, 4, 4. That's it. Click OK. Now it's going to ask if I want to save that as a target value default. No, I don't, because every image is going to be a little bit different. Double click the highlight or the white. 203, 203, 203. And that's 255 minus 52. That's the lightest area on that image. That's what it's going to look like. Click OK. No, I don't want to save as a default. You should be 2 clicks away from fixing the image now. Let's start, say, with our shadow. Doesn't really matter. We get over here and we make our first click and we're saying to the computer, I know you think that's black. It's actually 4 points away. Adjust that area to 4. It's a little bit darker. Pick up the highlight. Okay, computer, I know you think that is something that's much lower. We need that to be a 203. And go ahead and get in there. Make sure you get right and click. And if you do it right, there you go. Now, I know the math part was hard, and I'm sorry about that. But we mathematically changed this image and corrected the color in it with 2 clicks. Not too bad for some math.